Hey, Tom Rokeby. I'll be your chair for tonight's Strategic Directions meeting. The southeastern part of Vancouver Island, the Gulf Islands, and the lower Fraser Valley are the traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples. For thousands of years, the Coast Salish people have lived in, traveled, and fished the waterways of the Salish Sea. The Hulkaminam language is the language of this land. Hulkaminam traditionally, and to this day, unites the Snanas, Snunima, and the Snaminas peoples as one family, and on whose territories we stand today. We also give thanks to the ancestors, hereditary leaders, matriarchs, and creatures big and small for looking after the rich resources and cultural teachings of this land. I'd like to hear any additions, deletions, or change in order to the agenda at this point, if you'd like to put that in the chat. I should open the chat so I can see. Okay. Seeing none, I'm just checking that from the message in the chat. Is Naomi with us? Did we manage to get Naomi logged on?
I'm keeping track of that. We're working on it.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no changes, additions, or deletions, I would look for someone to move the agenda, please. Yeah, Mark, do you want to read it, or is that just enough? We'll move it by Mark and we'll second it by Leanne. Thank you. And I hope.
Should I read it, Tom?
Naomi. Yeah, no, I've just got Naomi coming in on external. That's great news.
Okay. That the minutes of the Strategic Directions Committee meeting held on April 9th, 2025 be approved.
Thank you, Mark. And I actually missed that. That was seconded by Leanna, actually moved by Leanna, but I missed it. My apologies, Trustee Pellegrin. Approval of the minutes. Can I get someone to read the motion to approve the minutes of the April 9th, 2025 meeting?
Just did. I'll do it again.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was looking for you for the agenda approval, Mark. Karen, did we get all that properly?
Chair, I move that the agenda be approved.
Okay, and that's what I thought Leanna was seconding. We should have went with Leanna. She was in first. And now, would someone else like to do the approval motion for the minutes, please? All right, I will. That the minutes of the Strategic Directions Committee meeting held on April 9th, 2025 be approved. And that is seconded by Greg Keller. Okay, presentations. Tonight, item 7.1, we're due to hear from Student Voice, and Don Balcom, our Assistant Superintendent, will be doing the introduction. So over to you, Don.
Thank you so much, and through the chair. We have some of our students from our Student Voice circle with us here tonight to present. They have put together this presentation for you. Some of it is from a district level, some of it's from school level. If there are students who are here and presenting, I just ask you as you come on, reminder to turn on your camera, unmute your mic, and introduce yourself at the first time you speak during the presentation. And we have some students that were at our rehearsal this morning that said they would be here this evening, and I don't see some of them online, so I will cover their slides if they're unable to join us or having technical difficulty getting going. But I do know that Lorraine and Maisie are here to get us started, so I'm going to turn it over to them.
Welcome.
Hi, my name's Lorraine.
I'm Maisie. We're both from Ladysmith.
And we'd like to start off this presentation by saying thank you to everyone for your time and for making this all possible.
So first, we have some goals for this presentation, and the goals of this presentation is to just give you guys a little overview of Student Voice in this past year, what's been going well, and what we're looking to do next year.
The purpose of Student Voice is for a group of students to come together and talk about things that we think could be improved throughout our schools, and then we hope that it gets implemented and relayed to the higher ups in the district.
So how does Student Voice work? How it works is a group of students come together for about monthly meetings, and we meet to talk about relevant topics for the improvement of our schools.
In the slide, you will see a list of meetings with the dates on when we met and the topics that were discussed. We've highlighted the topics that we'd like to further focus on in this presentation.
Hello, my name is Allison. I'm from Cedar, and I'm going to be talking about our wellness slide today. So over the past year, one of our major topics has been student wellness. We took a really deep dive into this topic, and we noticed that students are responding really well to wellness initiatives. So whether that's being at Cedar with their Wellness Wednesdays, or as well as Barsby with their whole wellness day. And then as we move forward, we're hoping to support the implementation of the student wellness framework. Thank you.
Okay, so the next topic we wanted to touch on was AI and technology. This was a very big topic this year. And for us, we've noticed what's going well is that teachers have started to use AI as a tool in the classroom for efficiency, making the classroom run smoother so they can focus more on students' personal needs. And some next steps are we're looking at getting education for students on how to use AI as a tool instead of using it as a crutch.
And I'm not sure if Venice was able to join us from John Barsby, but she was putting together some things around the school experience. And one of the things she wanted to highlight on this topic was around student advocacy. We had some great conversations on the way that students can get engaged and have some agency in advocating for their needs at the school level. So we had really good conversations around that. And then we were hoping going forward that we would be able to help teachers understand that student advocacy is not a bad thing, and that anonymous surveys can be quite helpful in moving the agenda forward. We'd now like to share out each school, just highlighting a couple of things that are working well at the school level around student voice, as well as where they're hoping to make changes and improvements going forward.
So at Ladysmith, some things that are going well are vape detectors in bathrooms, especially highlighting our new gender neutral bathrooms in the upstairs area. It has been a great success. Something that we think we could improve on is engagement, especially in the younger grades, because we've noticed that they don't seem to be as motivated or engaged in their schoolwork as they should be. And so we've been trying to brainstorm ways to improve that, because it is not going very well.
And then from Cedar, we've noticed that our extracurricular clubs are doing really well, especially as being a smaller school. We had lots of different sports teams, a GSA this year, and a really good eco club. So definitely just getting our participation up has been really well. And then we've noticed that our vaping in our bathrooms and our general safety in our bathrooms is something that needs improved on. And it's been something that's been brought up by lots of students.
At Barsby, there's lots of things that are going really well. You can see by the long list of bullets there. One of the things that they wanted to highlight for the trustees is the good sporting community, how they really rally around their teams, and being part of the Barsby athletic program is a highlight of student involvement. They're really interested in at the school moving forward, equipment and technology that can be provided to students to allow them to be on the leading edge of technology use. We also had a couple students from Dover that were with us this morning for rehearsal, and unfortunately, I think technology got in the way for them joining us. They're really proud of the student advocacy that they have going on at the school level, and they're excited to dig in, as other schools are, around bathroom safety and cleanliness. It's a big topic. You could throw vaping in there as well as a topic within bathroom safety. Wellington, we had Ava was going to join us as well, and I think technology has been a barrier as well. They're super excited about the course offerings that they've been able to expand at the school in the last few years, so they feel like students are able to find a course that they're interested in and get into a department that really highlights their passion. And they're also looking at digging in around AI use in the classroom. As been mentioned, it was a big focus for the group, and at Wellington, they want to dig in and figure out ways to make it more productive in the classroom. Island Connect Ed was really excited to share that they're building a very positive and active community. For an online school, they really have a sense of community. They get together regularly, and students and families are particularly proud of that experience. but they're also trying to increase the amount of staff and teacher availability to students, because some students really lack the community and have a desire to make stronger connections with staff. Learning Alternatives, super proud of their student-teacher relationships and the community that they built there. And they're excited about digging into ways that they can, as a school, support students in their grad transitions. So what comes next after you finish high school at Learning Alternatives has been a big topic for them.
Okay, so finally, going forward, we're hoping to have more frequent meetings monthly, not in the months of September or June because they're just kind of too early and too late in the school year. We're hoping to start hosting meetings at school since we've been having them at the DAC building and the Dufferin building. And lastly, we just want to keep on discussing relevant topics that are going to help students in the future and students now.
Thank you, students. And I let the students know that at the end of presentations, sometimes there's questions or comments, and so they're ready for you. So back to the chair.
Well, thank you, Don. And I won't try to catch all their names. I hope maybe you might repeat and get their names to us once again, because they did a fantastic job. The first thing I want to offer as my own personal comment is the parallels between what Student Voice talks about and what trustees talk about when we gather at big fancy conferences is uncanny. We are dealing with the same issues. These are important issues, and I really appreciate your perspective. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to our trustees, who I know many of them are devoted to Student Voice, for any questions that we might have for you guys. Okay, seeing Trustee Robinson, welcome.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, presenters, student presenters. That was very uplifting for all of us. Us trustees really appreciate your time to come to our committee and present on your students' behalf. And I guess my question is, if any of you guys want to answer, how are things going for you personally on the Student Voice? Are you enjoying it? Is it something that you're getting a lot out of? Or how you feeling about it?
Hi. So again, this is Lorena and Macy, and I feel like we can speak to that question pretty well because we've been doing Student Voice since grade 9, and this is currently our 3rd year doing it. I personally love the Student Voice, and I feel like I've been able to see the changes implemented in our school, which is amazing. And if you have anything to add?
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go first.
Okay, really quick, I just wanted to say that I've really enjoyed Student Voice because I've been able to get the perspectives of the different students. You always kind of think that where you're at is like you think that your school is maybe not the best out of all the options you could have went to, but then once you talk and you see what everyone's experiencing, you really get grateful for what you have, but then you also see what opportunities other people have, and it's just really great to be able to see that.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm Allie. I've been doing it for 3 years now, and I can really see all the benefits, especially from the school level. Any information I get back, I bring it back to my own school. And so we've been able to create, I think, even more connections throughout the district, being able to be like, oh, what's Dover doing about this issue compared to what Cedar's doing? And I think that it's been really important, especially as I'm in grade 12 and I'm graduating this year, to be able to pass on any knowledge that I've learned to the younger students at my school. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie, and thank you, Lauren and Maisie. Can I ask a follow-up, Chair?
Yeah, but I doubt it's going to be as good as the answers you're getting.
Oh, the answers are awesome. I guess the follow-up question to our students is how self-fulfilling do you feel that it is in terms of rewarding that you're coming back, you're sort of filling up your bucket for the day, and you know you've made a difference to your school community and made a difference to the students and your peers around you? Like, do you feel that sense? Do you feel that you've accomplished something amazing?
Yeah, I don't know if I can actually speak to how fulfilling it actually is, because I really do feel like it's so important being able to know that my voice actually matters and that the things that I have to say and these topics that I feel are so relevant, especially all the ones that we got to this year, being able to actually give a student input, because sometimes it feels like there's all these adults just controlling everything that's going on and we don't necessarily have a say. So I don't even think I can say how fulfilling it has been for me, especially. So that was a really good question. So yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Allie. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Robinson. Seeing now, Trustee Brzovic.
Thank you. My goodness, I have a million questions and I'm only allowed to ask one because they're not all connected. First of all, your presentation was fantastic. Really appreciated the way you laid it out on your slides, and I'm wondering if we as trustees could keep a copy of those slides to help us in maybe some of the work that we want to do in the future. I think the question I'll start with my one question is I was really excited about the reference to student advocacy, and I recall one of the meetings I attended, there had been talk about doing some actual advocacy training workshops. Is my memory going on me? Like, what are your students' thoughts on how you want to move forward on the advocacy pieces for teaching student advocacy?
Trustee Brzovic, maybe I'll answer that a little bit because Venice, who was going to speak to those slides, wasn't here. We talked at Student Voice Circle about a lot of different ways to advocate. Some of our conversation was around assessment and grading and the interaction around feedback with teachers. So that was an exciting piece. Some of it was advocacy around things like safety, mental health and wellness. So it was just giving students the opportunity to say, you know, your voice matters. All of the adults that park their car at a school are there for the students. And so we just need to make sure that students feel that they're welcome to share their ideas and thoughts and questions and concerns with the adults. So it was, the advocacy went in every single direction it possibly could.
Okay, thank you. I will go back. Is there anybody? Yes, there's someone else on the list, so I'll put myself back on the list because I have one other question, and it's
All
not
right.
related. I can't make it connect.
If you can type it in so I don't forget, I'd really appreciate it. Trustee Pellegrin.
Hi, you guys are speaking so clearly and beautifully, and I just love the slides that you gave. And I would agree that I couldn't take enough pictures fast enough, so I missed a couple, and I would love to be able to see them and dig in. So my question through the chair is for Allie. If I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about Wellness Wednesdays.
Yeah, for sure. So it originally started with a student last year who wanted to just implement more wellness into our school. So we started out with a full wellness day. We had lots of people come from outside of our school, and we just had lots of workshops that all students were able to attend. And then from that, we didn't want it to just feel like a once a year thing or maybe once or twice. It wanted to be something that we could actually implement. So now every Wednesday we have different activities that students can do during D block. And this is just like recently it's been Wellness Wednesday and we do yoga, or there's like Carrie Isham has come and talked about sexual health a couple times, and it's a way for students, so they're still getting their attendance, they're still in class, but it's a way for them to have just a break, to have something, go do yoga for the hour and then be able to reconnect with themselves so that when they have to go to their next class or when it's the next day, they have that opportunity to just kind of ground themselves a little bit. Because I think that wellness is such a big topic and you can't really learn in the classroom without having good mental health and feeling well in your body.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I feel like that could be incorporated in all the levels. That's really, really awesome. Thanks.
Wow. Can't wait for Allison to run for the board. Yeah, so I'm going to read a few comments from some of the trustees that have typed in. Our board chair, Naomi Bailey, shares, "Thank you for your presentation and commitment to making our schools a better place for your peers." Tim Harris says, "Huge thank you to the students." And Leanne Lee, Trustee Lee, offers up, "Thank you." Oh, I didn't get it quite right. "Thank you for having the courage to step into these roles and to be leaders in your school community." Chantal Morvay would like you to know that she echoes what all the other trustees have said. It will add, "Thank you to your dedication to student voice and amplifying the voices of others who sometimes are less likely to speak up." Amen. Yeah. And then we're back to Trustee Brzovic.
Thank you. My question actually was specifically, and I'm sorry, I've lost the student's name, about what was Lady Smith? Our trustee from Ladies, our student rep from Lady Smith mentioned the grade 9s, the engagement of grade 9s, the issues around the younger grades and the engagement. Have you had an opportunity to do any research to maybe get a sense of the reasons for any of that lack of engagement or lesser engagement?
So hi again, this is Lorraine. And I feel like I've also seen it a lot firsthand, because we peer tutor grade 8s right now. And something that we're constantly hearing is, I don't care about this, like my grades don't even matter right now. It's not like I can fail. And although I know that that's not necessarily something that we can change, it is a big reason, and we've heard it a lot, as well as like, I've just heard like, again, just a lot of like negativity towards our schoolwork, and we can't seem to understand why. I feel like it wasn't like this when we were in grade 8.
Okay. I just think it would be, I don't know, are you two both in grade 12?
11.
11, because it would be a great capstone project to interview some students and find out about their thoughts. And I don't want to say too much, but I won't say too much, but talk to Ava, because she just did one.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank
Ava
you.
Wellington. That's one of the reasons I'm disappointed she couldn't get in, because she's done some really good work around this topic.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know.
You're very
Trustee
welcome. And
Brzovic
I
on
just
the
want to
pulse.
say one other thing as a comment. The quality of the speaking and presentation tonight from you guys is better than some Toastmasters I've worked with for years. So kudos to all of you.
Yeah, I would have to concur with Trustee Brzovic there that, we're obviously seeing the benefit, not just of the students' input, but this is learning. And this is really high quality learning for these students, and their performance is amazing. Mark Robinson, come on down.
Thank you. Another question, if I can. As you students probably know, that this is not the school board. This is the Strategic Directions Committee. And I think Mr. Balcom may have sort of let you know that this is where all our stakeholders get engaged. So the parents have DPAC, and our support workers, like the janitors and secretaries, they have CUPE, and the teachers have the NDTA. Our Indigenous land-based stakeholders, they have Leaders for Learning, and the principals and the administration have the NSAA. So my question is, do you feel that students are ready to have a voice at the table in some capacity, to be enfranchised and have the opportunity to sit as equals with the other stakeholders, being, the most at stake? Would that be something engaging and interesting to you?
I definitely think that students are ready for that level. I mean, obviously it would depend on which students you're picking, and it would have to be a big question on who is ready for that. But I think that since it is our education we're talking about, that I think that it would be really valuable to hear from all of those students. Thank you.
Thanks, Allie. And I'll just mention, I did see that some of the students couldn't get in due to technology because they came as visitors instead of presenters. So I give all the students that are there watching a big pass. So thanks. Can I have a follow-up?
Sure, Mark.
Sure. Right. I guess the last one, and I'll leave it alone because this has been my jam. I was on student council at Dover Bay 30 years ago more. So I've always thought that students should have some say, more say than what they currently have. I guess my question is, with the student voice, do you think the student voice could self-determine who, with the direction and guidance of staff like Mr. Balcom or whomever, come up with reps for coming to the Strategic Directions Committee?
I think that's actually a great suggestion, because the students that are at Student Voice are the ones that would like to advocate for ourselves. And I think that would be another direction we could take Student Voice in, and that's definitely something we could think about for next year. I don't know what Dawn has to say about that, but.
Absolutely. I'm the least articulate person at those student voice circle meetings, so they're very, very capable of advocating and participating. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Starting
you.
to feel
I am
limited.
I'm going to listen. Thank you.
Starting to feel a little intimidated, Don. It's quite a table you must sit at.
Yes.
This has been incredibly enlightening. Leanna Pellegrin offers again that she forgot to say that she loved what Ali said about passing on the knowledge to the students behind you. It's such an important torch to pass on. You're absolutely right. When you talk about those, when I see the concern that you have for the younger students, I think we're doing something right when we're thinking like that. And Chantal Morbe, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I didn't think I had questions because I really wanted to go through the PowerPoint presentation more and kind of delve more into that. But I realized there's something that piqued my curiosity here. It's the student wellness framework. I'm not quite sure if somebody could elaborate what they meant by that. That would be great.
Through the chair, I can share a little bit of information. So I know Director of Instruction, Kirsty Funkin Robinson, is here. She's working with other staff on our student wellness framework, and they attended a Student Voice Circle meeting, district meeting with everybody to gather some insight. And then they went to each school individually to meet with groups of students to gather additional information. So our Student Voice Circle students are familiar with it. The framework is being built for them. They had lots of input around wellness. As mentioned, we had lots of conversations around wellness. So it's a very welcome framework that's going to be coming in the coming days and weeks and months. And our students are excited that there's going to be a structure for them to engage with. And a lot of students talked about the challenges of mental wellness over the last several years. So a lot of our Student Voice Circle students are grade 10 or 11 or 12, and they talked about the challenges of coming through COVID when they were younger. So they're all looking forward to it. They know a lot more about the framework and the work around wellness for students than many of our staff in the system right now. I don't know if Kirsten wants to add anything on that or not.
I think you summarized it well. I think through the chair, lots more to come, as Don said, in the coming weeks and months, but it's a very exciting time, and the Student Voice Circle has been very helpful in kind of getting us started in that data collection process from students. So we've called them student wellness chats because it's been face-to-face conversations through class-wide discussion prompts from teachers to classes, like from K to 12. And we've broken the data collection down into themes from kindergarten to grade 3, grades 4 to 7, and grades 8 to 12. And then we've also done focused conversations with adults with relationships with students from our priority populations as well. So we're going to have some very, very interesting information to share with you. It's already, we poured over the data late last week, and it's really impactful. And just like we've experienced tonight, the voices of our students are tremendously powerful in guiding us adults. So I look forward to sharing that with you in the weeks and months to come.
Great. I am very much looking forward to it. That is fantastic. I'll ask my questions then, and I think the questions that I have right now, they'll be answered when we get to have a more fulsome presentation on that. Really, really appreciate this work and hearing from nothing about us without us, right? And so creating that with them is really, really, really integral. And I really appreciate all that work and the voices of the students who come forward and speak about these issues. It really does take courage, as Leanne said. Yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
And thank you, Trustee Morbe. I want to close by commenting that, aside from appreciating the structures that have been put in place by staff and so ably participated in by our students, I think the takeaway that I got from tonight's presentation was actually around we still have concerns around our bathrooms. And I was really happy to hear that from the students. This is a fundamental need. If I was having problems going to the washroom at my workplace, I wouldn't stand for that either. So I'm really happy to hear that staff is working on it. I was glad to see some of the solutions that we're coming up with. Yeah, I think the board needs to continue to push for proper funding to solve these problems architecturally. And we will. And so thank you for bringing that to our perspective, to our attention. I have kids in grade 11 and 8 at NDSS, and I would say that's the #1 challenge they've had transitioning to high school is adapting to the bathrooms. I can't thank you enough for the 3 groups that came out. And to all the students who participated in the background, if you weren't able to get in, I hope you have a chance to participate with us sometime in the future. And thank you very much, Mr. Dr. Don Balcom, for leading this group.
Thank you, and I'll just thank the students and appreciate, even if you couldn't log in because we had technological difficulties, thank you for contributing to Student Voice Circle this year, and feel free to log off the meeting and enjoy the rest of your evening. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, and we'll see your name on the ballot some year, and I'll definitely be voting for you. All right, so we're moving on to section 8 of senior staff reports. And first up tonight, we're going to hear from Carrie Steele, our Director of Instruction on Learning and Inclusion, and she's going to be discussing Accessibility Committee's annual report. Welcome, Carrie.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As you know, the Accessibility Committee is coming towards the end of its second year. It was formed in the fall of, well, a little before the legislation came in the fall of 2023. We've worked really hard to be compliant with the representation that's required through the Accessibility Act. So we have both staff and community members as part of it. And many of the individuals at the table have either lived experience themselves or are the parent of an individual with lived experience with a diverse ability or disability. So it's really rich conversation, really broad representation at the table, which is lovely. I have provided a summary of the committee's work in the last year for the board's review. I would just like to specifically highlight the progress we've made related to the built environment this year. Learning Services collaborated with the Facilities Department to engage a consultant from a group called Untapped Accessibility. That's the group that the province initially, or the Ministry of Education and Childcare initially engaged with to help us develop our plans in the first place. And an architectural consultant has helped us to develop this beautiful matrix that has a number of factors, things like safety, urgency, and then of course things like cost and accessibility of resource people and physical resources to do the work, lets us prioritize things in a way that will allow us to be a lot more equitable and efficient when we're addressing accessibility concerns in our schools. So the tool's brand new. We haven't even tried it on yet, other than a couple of kind of test studies with it. But we've formed a committee of it's kind of a subgroup of the main accessibility committee with the staff that are connected to the work. And we think it's going to be a really productive and efficient way to support infrastructure moving forward. So we're really excited about that. So yeah, so thank you for an opportunity to provide an annual report, and I'm of course open to any questions.
Well, thank you, Carrie. And I would open it up to trustees. If they had any questions for Carrie, I could place them in the chat, please. And seeing Trustee Morvay. Welcome, Trustee Morvay.
Thank you, Chair Tom. So thank you for this update. This is a nice high overview of what's been going on over the year. And as you know, this is my passion. So yeah, I look at it and it's fantastic that it's like different priorities and it's all set up so that, you know, each one kind of gets a bit of attention and stuff like that. And we all know that the built environment is one of the critical components of an accessible and inclusive space. I'm wondering, because I know that there was money put aside in the budget for the accessibility component, if you could clarify kind of how that works and what are some of the things that the money was used for in that budget. I think it was 50,000, or did it go up to 70,000? I can't remember. And how does the committee sort of work with that?
Yeah, thank you. So through the chair, so the committee doesn't actually work with that. The money is not assigned to the committee. The committee itself has no budget. The money is assigned to departments for staff to undertake projects that need to be done. So a little tiny bit of that money was used to engage the consultant this year because we realized that our systems were clunky and needed some refining if they were really going to serve the system and our kids and families well. So a little bit of it went to that. The rest of it actually all went to built environment improvements this year. You know, we're really the facilities department is very strategic in, you know, where we're able to, if we have a renovation happening already, for example, and we have funding coming for an upgrade or a renovation or something, they're really good at piggybacking accessibility things into other projects so that we can be smart from the start and get that work done. But of course, you know, there's lots of places where we're adding ramps or handles or high-vis paint and those kinds of things at our schools that are already built and not being renovated. So can be expensive and time consuming to do that. So that's where the focus of the dollars have gone. The other work that you see in there was all, there was no cost to it. So some of it, you know, in a world where we had unlimited budgets, we could move some things along in different ways, but, you know, we've done the best with the resources we have. And I think we've tried to prioritize the places where we knew kids were not going to get access to things they really needed if we didn't mobilize. And so, yeah, didn't take long actually to spend it. Yeah.
That is for sure. That can go really, really fast. I have another question, but I can wait for other people.
There is nobody else, Chantal.
Goodness. Okay, great. Actually the thing that kind of really stood out for me was the school teams participated in an accessible play challenge, where they were invited to explore ways to offer more inclusive play opportunity for students. So they submitted their experiences into a draw for grant towards accessible play equipment for their school. Sample activities were collated and shared throughout the system. Could we find anything like this? Like, I think that's a really great template. And is there like can PACS sort of like access that and things like that? Like, is that?
Yeah. So through the chair, I think that's a question worth exploring for sure. This particular challenge went to school-based teams and thinking about ways to wrap around accessible play during unstructured times at the school. It was meant to be like play opportunities that increased belonging and social connections for kids. The focus wasn't so much on the things PACS might choose to do, like playground equipment and stuff, but good question to take forward in the future for sure. Thank you.
Well, I think they could be really great ideas that other people, like even families, could use, right? Like sometimes we just don't know how to, you know, have inclusive play in the neighborhood. And so I just think it's all the information is good information. So thank you. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Chantal. And Tanya, welcome.
Thank you again, Chair. And Carrie, this is sort of a question for you, but I realize you probably don't have all the information I would need. It might end up being more of a question for Mark or in the future for facilities. But I was thinking about retrofitting buildings and so on and so forth. Has the ministry said anything about making some funding available that is strictly for supporting us in actually doing that? Like, is that what you were saying, that there's actual money available for putting a ramp somewhere that needs to be added, or fixing a doorway? I'm thinking of my passion around the fact that we get places where the front doors aren't accessible. Or are we still in the situation of just having to put in our regular AFG/capital cost requests?
Sure, maybe I can take that if that's okay, Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's no specific accessibility pot that's provided by the Ministry of Education. However, to your point, is the annual facilities grant can certainly be used for those enhancing school projects that are, you know, there's only so much money in it, but certainly that's where the vast majority of our accessibility dollars come from. Some comes from the boards operating as well. If there was a major project, we could apply for you know, a minor capital project. However, what you typically see is, you know, we're upgrading Solaire. It's time to take those extra steps with Solaire. Pleasant Valley, both things occurred to increase accessibility in that particular circumstance. One of the things we shifted last year, in AFG is there is an AFG contingency for accessibility. And to Carrie's point, that's to add to every project. There's money available, small amount, but money available to knock off an accessibility issue if it arises while we're opening a wall or while we're upgrading something else as well. And so, but nothing specific, but certainly we have the flexibility to use those dollars for that purpose.
May I have a follow-up, Chair?
Yes.
Yes. Is there flexibility for us to explore other sources of funding for accessibility related upgrades? Like, do we have any limitations on us in terms of, I'm thinking first one that came to mind was Rick Hansen and Neil Squire, but I think there are other grants out there too.
Certainly through you, Chair, if there's money available, I guess we could try to make it accessible to us. However, some I'm not sure we're nonprofit in
Fair
the
enough.
eyes of some of those organizations, but you know, certainly there's nothing that prevents us from applying if the applicant or if the application allows for us to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. And Chantel.
We'll go to Leanna. But,
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's
Thank
just a
you,
comment.
Chantel.
Yeah, thank you.
How generous of you. Leanna Pellegrin.
So generous. Thanks, Chantal. I was just wondering, through the chair, sorry, to Carrie. I was really fascinated by this play, what is it? Accessible Play Challenge. I was wondering if you could just maybe share just a tiny bit about that, because I find that fascinating and it really envelops all of that, including the peer part, which is just such a good team thing.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, so through the chair, we're actually very excited about it. It was a toe dip into something we hope to do a lot more work around the next few years. But, you know, we've observed there are some kids, particularly kids with mobility barriers, who spend a lot of time alone with an adult on the playground at recess and lunch sometimes. And when requests come in for things like accessible swings, those are really complicated questions. Accessible swings have to be over accessible ground cover. And so now we're looking at big playground overhauls and all kinds of fundraising, and you know, some of our properties have lots of slope and things like that. And so while we should of course be considering those options where they're available to us, there are lots of things we can do on the blacktop and the sidewalk and the field that are accessible. And so we just wanted to build awareness and understanding of those opportunities. And so we kind of challenge school teams to think about not just like what are you playing, but who are you playing with and how are the kids engaging with each other. And we started by reaching out to inclusion support teachers through school-based teams just to think about the kiddos on their caseloads. But we have quite a few schools that sent some beautiful outdoor learning things that it had expanded into, and clubs that had started at schools, and giant Jenga games, and like, you know, soccer balls that are light or big blow up balls that kids with a mallet in a wheelchair would be able to kind of play soccer with friends because of the size of the ball. And so we just want to keep expanding it and moving forward, but it was a really exciting kind of first toe dip into it, and we definitely are going to keep the conversation going next year. The other little bit of synergy that started, and it's early days yet, but one of our committee members is also a coach with Pacific Sport, and she does the Wheel Kids program, the wheelchair sports program. And so we're looking at making sure that families are well aware of that, but also she'd love to partner with some classroom teachers around some accessible play in like PE classes at elementary schools, for example, next year. So we're at the beginning of lots more exciting things to come, I think.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's like, oh, just the image of the way that you said that. That's so beautiful. Thank you.
Giant Jenga game. And back to Chantel.
Right, and this is actually just going back to what Tanya said about funding and things like that. And that's something that's been rolling around in my head, and I meant to kind of actually do it this year, but it's probably going to be a next year thing, and maybe me and Tanya and others could get together to work on it. But it's going to the BCTF AGM with a motion that helps us advocate to the ministry for funding for accessibility committees, because it is a legislated thing. And if you're going to legislate it, you should probably fund it too. So yeah, we're going to work hard at advocating for funding for this, because this is really, really integral piece for one of our priority populations that actually expands into all our other priority populations as well. So thank you very much for your work on this. This will be a great help too, to help advocate for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Chantel. And Carrie, I think that's all the questions for you and your update or your report. Thank you very much for your time tonight and your continued work in this area.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Okay, and 8.2, we're going to welcome Jackie Poulin, our Assistant Superintendent, and Mark Walsh, our Secretary Treasurer, for a Rutherford update.
Good evening, and through the chair. So you do have the info sheet there, so I'm just going to speak to a couple of items on the info sheet and then maybe a little bit more. Super getting excited as Mike and I have a chance to get down to Rutherford every couple of weeks to see the work being done on the building and in the classroom. So it's great to see facilities is working hard and lots of work getting done down there. You can probably see in my background, every time I come on screen, people ask, what's in your background? A little bit of a storage space right now, but you'll see that you can't really tell exactly what it is, but it is some of the beautiful artwork that has been created by James Johnny, a local Stanemo artist, that will be installed on the outside walls by the front entrance. So just some great things coming along. Enrollment is currently around 250 students, so it's great to have it coming up to that nice viable number. And we currently are kindergarten to grade 7. Even though grade 7 was optional, we do have a number of grade 7 students who's decided to move to Rutherford and be part of that new family for next year. As noted on the info sheet, we are exploring the possibility of a Tier 3 intervention program. We are working closely with our principals and vice principals to learn more about the needs in the system and ways that we can support schools. So we are holding some space at Rutherford as we continue to explore this option and work with our principals, vice principals, and just the system around what those supports for schools might look like. Mike Lundeen, the principal named for Rutherford, has already hosted a couple of Rutherford PAC meetings at Rock City, because that's where he is currently. We've had great turnout and a positive energy. I believe his first PAC meeting we had over 40 people, so it was a great turnout and asking questions there. We have some fantastic welcome activities planned for our students in June. We'll be having the students who are coming to Rutherford, coming onto the outside grounds of Rutherford to have some time there. And I would like to have an opportunity to just unveil, and I'll share on my screen, the new logo that is going to be for Rutherford with the color. And I know some of you saw the sketch possibly, but here's what our logo will be looking like for Rutherford. They're going with the Rutherford Rams. I'm hoping you can see it. Seeing a nod, thank you. So that's, again, artwork done by James Johnny in consultation with the PAC around and the student body around what the name would be for it and moving forward. Staying with the colors that Rutherford had before, but a new name with being Rams to new identification. So that everything else was on the info sheet, unless you had any questions. Or if Mark wanted to add anything.
Mark, did you want to jump in?
No, thank you very much, Jackie. Appreciate letting you letting me add my name to the hard work that's getting done. And just also just to express some appreciation for some patience. We've had a few hiccups in some of the renovations as they've gone along, and so you know, the team has worked really hard to get it right, and so we're ready for open. Probably a few finishes to do as we open, but at the same time, appreciate all the hard work that's going on.
And thank you both for your efforts. There are some comments and questions in the chat. Mark Robinson says he misses the Roadrunner, but he loves this. Greg Keller thinks it's nice. Leanna Pellegrin thinks it's a wonderful logo. Tanya Brazovic really likes it, and Chantel Morvay has a question.
Thank you. I too really love that logo. That is absolutely beautiful. That's really nice. I think we're gonna have some people who are a little envious, but go Rams. So my question is regards to the out of catchment requests. Do we have a kind of a figure of how many have requested that and how many we were not able to accommodate?
Do you want me to go with that one first, Mark, or did you want to?
Sure, just, yeah, you've got it at your fingertips.
Sure. We have about 40 approximately out of catchment requests. At this point in time, as we're watching our elementary enrollment so closely, we are holding off until June and just seeing. Registrations still come in so much in May and June that we want to just be really respectful of staffing, resources, and where we're at, but we're watching it closely and staying in close communication with families.
Okay, great. So it's like not like a no for sure, but like no, we can't, but we might change that coming up.
And there are so many factors that play into it. So we'll be taking a look at all of the considerations, staffing, resources, making sure that Rutherford's viable, looking at all of the various different components to it, and then in consultation with the schools. So
awesome. Thank you.
And perhaps I'll just add one aspect to that if I could, Jackie, and that's it's, you know, fairly technical in nature, but one of the things we do need to be very careful about is adding students to a school that are theoretically going to put that school back into a non-compliance situation with respect to collective agreement requirements. And again, this is not about the union raising concerns, but it will be about potentially the funding for our CEF. And if we ever get looked into, well, wait a second, why are you, you know, adding students back to put yourself in a potential position of having remedy or something like that? And so we do need to make best efforts. And so I know that, again, the wider community probably doesn't understand the intricacies of LOU 17, but it's something that we are watching as well. So it's creating a challenge that certainly puts a difficulty in expecting many transfers.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chantel. And I think that's all I see in the chat for our Assistant Superintendent, our Secretary Treasurer. I thank you both. And moving on to number 9, correspondence referred from the regular board meeting. I don't see anything, but Karen will tell me if I'm wrong. And if I'm not wrong, then we'll move on to number 10, unfinished business. And that would begin with 10.1, Laura Tate, our Assistant Superintendent, and she's going to be discussing our local school calendars. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Good evening. So the 3-year calendar has been out now for the required 30-day consultation. Feedback was somewhat limited from the public with 3 emails in total, all regarding spring break. During the calendar committee meeting, CUPE executive shared a viewpoint or shared a few points regarding the date, most particularly the dates of the CID in each year. So while feedback has been limited, it may also be a reflection of confidence and support in the direction being taken across the 3 years in the calendars. So you've had an opportunity to read the action sheet, and so I'm certainly open for questions. And if there are none, I'll leave this to you for your discussion and decision.
Thank you, Laura. And I'm just clarifying and assuming that CID is Curriculum Implementation Day.
It is.
And I would look for questions in the chat. But while I see if any come in, I'll add my own. You said there were 3 concerns about spring break. Can you share the nature of those?
They were 3 emails about spring break. One just wanting to push it back a little bit later for nicer weather. And the other 2 just wondering about making them 1 week versus 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you. I do see a question in the chat now from our CUPE President, Jeff Vertanen. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not so much a question, just more as a comment. I just wanted to give you guys some context as to the concern that we brought up. So last year, Curriculum Implementation Day was moved till later in June. So what that did, because as most of you know, support staff gets paid 5 of the 6 non-instructional days in the year. So when that moved, it felt like to support staff that they worked every non-instructional day, because that day came after they would have been off. So that Curriculum Implementation Day actually became a waiting day as part of the waiting period for school-based staff to collect EI. So I have had actually quite a few members reach out this year saying, hey, how come they took that day away from us? There's some confusion because they're feeling that they worked it last year when they actually didn't. It would have been pushed to June. So anyways, I just want to bring it up that's just give you context on what our concern was. Thanks.
And thank you, Jeff, and thank you as always for working things out with our staff. Chantel Morvay.
Right, thank you. I don't recall us having like that on the last page 20 of our agenda. It says local school calendar 3-year, and somebody actually mentioned it in the emails, and I never noticed it either. But why is there 2 more days in 2028, 2029? I'm just like, well, that's interesting. I don't know. It's more of a curiosity question than anything else. It doesn't really change much here, but I'm just curious why that landed how it did. You're muted. You're muted. No.
Sorry about that. There are a couple of things that might impact that, and I invite anyone else on the call that wants to jump in. But one of the key pieces is going to be when the beginning and the end of the school year are. I mean, we tend to try and time things or time things to end on a Friday at the end of the week, say at the end of June, and in our collective agreement, depending on how many days before that Friday, we can end it on the Friday. We might have to push it earlier, right? There are different factors. And we have to always keep in mind, of course, the number of instruction, like the amount of instructional time that's required for both elementary and secondary. So we have to make sure that we have enough of that, and that, you know, can be impacted from year to year.
Okay, thank you. That makes a lot of sense now. I understand that the contract too dictates a little bit of that as well. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and Karen Matthews clarifies as well that it depends on when Labor Day falls. Some years we start earlier in September, and you know, those are the years we don't like. And then there's the years after, when you come back right away after Christmas, or when you get a long Christmas. Yeah. I also, it's been brought to my attention in the chat, and I'm gonna just add this to your presentation because I think it's somewhat relevant, that today is TTOC Appreciation Week, or today is part of TTOC Appreciation Week. So when we think about the calendar and we think about all the hardworking people that live by this calendar, let's not forget our wonderful TTOCs. Thank you, Joanne, for the reminder. Yeah, I don't see any other questions, Laura. Thank you very much for your work, and we'll see you in 3 years.
Thanks.
Okay, and we're moving on, and
Sorry to interrupt.
oh, we have a
Tom, we
motion
need
to
a
do
motion.
here. Would any of the trustees who are actually paying attention like to read the motion? That would be Chantel. Go ahead, Chantel.
Yay, I win the prize. It's hard because the calendar is, the Strategic Directions Committee recommends that the Board of Education of School District Number 68, Nanaimo Ladysmith, approve the attached 3-year draft local school calendars for 2026, 2027, 2027, 2028, and 2028, 2029.
And that's seconded by Mark Robinson. And so at this point, we've really had questions. So I think I feel comfortable to call the question.
Well, I'd like to motivate the motion if you don't mind.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Is that okay? Okay, great.
Yes, absolutely.
I will say calendars are really hard. It's hard to please everybody with a calendar that involves 14 or almost 15,000 students now, almost as much staff. It's a really hard one because it affects the whole community. Like it affects like even outwards, childcare, things like that. And it's a fine balance to make. And I think this sort of this is a lot of hard work put in, a lot of input, and it does seem like, while some folks would like to have a 1-week spring break, at this time it's just not feasible. And so I will be supporting this motion. And I really do wish we could have pleased everybody. That would be fantastic in a perfect world. But unfortunately, that's not how it is. But we'll try to mitigate some inconveniences as well, too, on our side. So thank you very much for all your hard work, staff, on this calendar. Thank you.
Thank you, Chantel. And at this point, I will call the question. So if anyone's opposed to the motion as presented by Chantel and seconded by Mark, please enter it in the chat now. And seeing no bouncing dots, I will take the assumption that we're good. And thank you very much for passing that motion. And again, thank you, Laura Tate, for your work. Moving on to 10.2, Mark Walsh, Secretary Treasurer, revised policy and bylaw recommendations.
Great, thank you, Chair. And so there's 2 motions under this item, and I will deal with them separately. So the first motion is recommending a final adoption of the 3 policies that are laid out there. And so you'll recall that policy 218, role of the chair and vice chair, is an update. Relative, I don't believe we had any feedback on that particular policy. I know that the board had a bit of a discussion about this and I think was happy with the additions. Policy 505, school catchment student enrollment, is completely new. There was one piece of feedback associated with French immersion. The catchment of student enrollment's not really dealing with the French immersion aspect in too much depth. And then finally, policy 403, which is also a new policy. And then so essentially we have the role of the chair and the vice chair. That'll be, if it's passed, put into the policy manual as updated. policy 505 put into the policy manual is updated, then APs that are already in existence will be amended as appropriate, probably some taken out of the APs that's really more policy, as well as ensuring that the APs align. And then board recognition, then there will be an AP that's going to follow up that, or a few APs associated with board recognition. You'll see we only had one piece of feedback on board recognition, and thankfully to see it was from a staff member who had comments from other staff members that were supportive. So the policy committee reviewed this, are not suggesting any changes to the policies based off of the feedback, and happy to answer any questions, but the motion is there for consideration with respect to the 3 policies at this time.
I think before moving to Tanya's offer to move the motion, I'm going to entertain questions about the topic from anybody. Not seeing any. I guess the floor is yours, Trustee Brzovic.
Thank you. That the Strategic Direction Committee recommends that the Board of Education of School District Number 68, the Nanaimo Ladysmith, adopt the following amended policies. Policy 218, role of the chair and vice chair. Policy 505, school catchment and student enrollment. Policy 403, board recognition.
Thank you very much, Tanya. And there's Greg to second that motion. Thank you, Greg. And Tanya, would you like to motivate?
I think that the policy committee, as a member of the policy committee, I'm pretty happy with the work that we've done on these policies. And given the lack of requests for any kind of changes from the public consultation, it's time to make them official.
And looking for any questions or chat before I call the question. I too appreciate our policy committee. It was a fantastic 2 years. I miss it, but it looks like the work is happening without me. Sad, but it continues on. All right, so I'll call the question. If anyone's opposed to the motion as presented by Tanya, please enter it in the chat now. And seeing none, I think we have some new policies. Thank you very much. Or at least we passed them. Yeah. And moving on to motion 2, should we go right into that, Mark?
Sure. So the second one is associated with the passage of a bylaw, and just a bit of background perhaps to remind trustees how it's come about. So what we have is bylaw 502 now. So what we're doing again is trying to put it in the right spot in the policy book, but it has to be a bylaw according to the words of the School Act, which is otherwise it would have been labeled as a policy. And so what this does is it's the policy associated, or sorry, the bylaw associated with appeals, the statutory appeals under section 11 of the School Act. And so essentially what it does is it gives a student, or most often the parent of a student, the ability to appeal a decision that has a significant impact on the education, health, or safety of a student. And then there's some specific kind of items that are automatically assumed to have a significant impact. And then the board has the discretion to hear what it wants. What the main changes or the two aspects that are really intended to happen here. One are to give a very transparent outline of what the board's being asked to do when there's an appeal. So is the board being asked to look at the decision and decide it's the exact one the board would have made, or alternatively, in this case, what the bylaw is suggesting, the board is being asked to look at the situation from a reasonableness factor. So let's take suspension as an example. So the suspension happens, a parent appeals the 10-day suspension, or whatever that number looks like, and I don't think that happens very often, but the parent comes to appeal on behalf of their student, and they see that the process was flawed. So theoretically, even if the suspension is reasonable in that circumstance, perhaps the process is flawed enough that in the end, the decision becomes unreasonable, or that 10 days is too much, or something along that lines. And so there's still access for a parent to access this process under the School Act and under the bylaw. The other thing that it does is it does give some exemplars of what may or may not be typically determined to be significant decisions. And so again, the board is the only one that gets to make that call, but it's really important that it's transparent to a parent that it's just not every decision that can be appealed. And it's what's interesting is we're seeing an uptick in the amount of appeals for decisions that would never have applied. And so this kind of guidance is valuable, again, ultimately up to the board in the circumstance. And then the other thing that's really, it's going to stem in the event that the board approves this evening, the next step is to actually separate complaint and appeal. So one is, I really don't like what happened at the school, but there's no decision that was made or something is passed. I want to be able to project my concerns somewhere, and we want some direction. That's what we're going to do. And so there's some confusion again about, I really don't kind of like the way that it occurred, but I'm not expressing concern about a decision or a lack of decision. And so we want to give that guidance from a formal, kind of almost judicial process in one way to making sure that our community, our particular parents and students, have an avenue to express concerns. So that's what it's intended to do. I do note that there was a bit of feedback that expressed concerns. I'm hoping that this explanation can address them, but the other thing that we intend to do is put out a one-pager, like here's what an appeal looks like, here's what the process looks like, to be as transparent as possible in the event that it is approved. So the next step would be the board approves. If it does, then we come back with an administrative procedure that outlines what that process looks like, outlines what the complaint process looks like, as well as then the one pager of what the actual appeal process in the room is going to entail. So happy to respond to any questions, but there are no suggested changes from the previous version put to the board.
Thank you very much, Mark. Yeah, I will look for any questions before I ask a trustee who wants to move the motion. Does anybody have any questions on this topic for our Secretary Treasurer? If not, would one of our trustees like to move it for us? Okay, I will. The Strategic Directions Committee recommends that the Board of Education of School District number 68 in Nanaimo Ladysmith read bylaw 502 parent-student appeals for a third and final time. And that was seconded by Greg. I will simply add my own motivation that I appreciate that the work of parent appeals is difficult but important. I was also very impressed to just see the work around the desire to have transparency. Our goal is truth, and to make sure that we make the system better for students with everything we do. I'm now seeing some comments in the chat, so I'd like to turn to Trustee Morvay. Chantal, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for this explanation. I know you're trying hard to explain this to us, and I've been mulling it over ever since this came to us, especially in the language regarding the reasonableness review. What I see it as kind of actually very differently, and I'll explain. I have it kind of written down here, so forgive me if it sounds more, robotic than anything else, but I thought it would be a really good way to sort of get my thoughts across if I actually wrote it down and I don't go off onto tangents. So I really like the bylaw, and I'm really glad we're looking at it, because it is really hard for families, parents, and students to understand that process. What does it look like? What is it about? I'm clarifying that. I think we've done a really good job with that. There's just a few tiny little things, and I brought this up last time, and I'm bringing it up again this time, because I'm actually going to be speaking against moving the motion. Sorry, but I really feel strongly about this, and I'll explain why. So, as I previously stated, the Section 11 of the School Act is the only way for families or students, the only legal way for them to appeal a decision or non-decision affecting a student's health, safety, or education before going to, the higher level, which is Superintendent of Appeals, or the Human Rights Tribunal. So the School Act states a board may make any decision it considers appropriate in respect of an appeal a student or parent files. It must render a decision within 45 days of receiving appeal. So again, it states a board may make any decision it considers appropriate in respect of an appeal of a student or parent files. So the updated bylaw now states trustees will not be asked if they agree with the decision, but whether the decision falls within a range of reasonable outcomes. And I've been trying to wrap my head around that, Mark, and I'm thank you for trying to explain it, but I'm still not there. And if I'm still not there, then I have a feeling that a lot of families will not be there either, and maybe trustees that come up behind us as well. So my concern is that it mirrors a legal principle from court-based reasonableness review, a standard that requires deference and assumes legal expertise. Reasonableness review is a deferential standard of review that requires a court to ensure that the administrative decision falls within a range of reasonable outcomes that are defensible in light of the facts and law. That's through Google. Sorry, Mark, I Googled that one. And I still don't understand it. And I think that is can create a lot of barriers. So I find it overly complex and misaligned really with ministry expectations. The ministry did create a board level student appeal guidelines document in November 2022, and it states appeal documents should be structured to reduce barriers. Appeals are statutory decision-making processes under administrative law, and as such must adhere to the principles of procedural fairness. So the current wording I believe imposes a legalistic standard and suited to a school district setting may be difficult for trustees, students, and parents to understand or apply, which I've already kind of stated a few times now. And it risks confusion about what constitutes a reasonable outcome and who defines that. The use of term reasonableness may inadvertently heighten tension between the board, staff, and families rather than fostering collaboration, because I think all our staff are reasonable. I think that they are all making reasonable decisions within this context. And sometimes when it comes up to our level, perhaps fresh eyes are something to look at. And it's not trying to say that staff were unreasonable. It's just maybe something needed to be brought to our attention. So to resolve this, I'd thought of some ideas. I want a solution, right? So I don't want to say that we can't have anything there, because we do need to have something there. Families need to understand how it is that we are making the decision. And I really appreciate that we are looking at that. But for me, I feel like it should be more simplified or broken out, perhaps, where we are deciding, we could write out that we are deciding this based on legislation or appropriate legislation, board policy, the CSS framework, our JEDI commitments, and the charter, including our duty to accommodate. So those are the things that I was kind of thinking of when it comes to that aspect of our new wording in our bylaw. And my other point too is the EA hours under 1.7b, minor differences in resourcing level of EA hours. This is something also that we heard from our feedback as well. And as shared during public consultation, EA hours can significantly impact a student's education, health, and safety. Labeling these as minor does not reflect the real impact. And I realize that it's sort of like not typically, but if we add that in there and families see that or students see that, they might not see that typically part and think, oh, well, I can't do that. But we do know that they can bring that forward. So for these reasons, I would ask that we delay this and sort of tweak some of that language so that we can be more clear and fulsome in our language out to staff, out to families and students, so that we're kind of all have that common understanding of what it is that we're supposed to be doing here in this context. So thank you very much for listening to me, and hopefully everybody can sort of take that all in. I hope I didn't speak too fast on that one. I tend to do that when I'm a little bit nervous. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Chantal. I think at this point, we would be looking to call the question. Sorry, I lost track. Did we move this yet? Yeah, I think I moved it and Greg seconded it. So at this point, I'd be calling the question. So if anybody is opposed to the motion as presented, they could please put that in the chat now. And the motion passes with one recorded vote and opposed. Thank you. Moving on to 10.3, Mark Walsh, Secretary Treasurer, and we're going to discuss the board committee structure review. Interesting. Yes, it's been a good time.
Thank you, Chair. So you'll see on page 44 of the agenda, a recommended motion to put out policy well, it's 210, used to be 2.5, or sorry, I apologize, it's not 2, it's 208, used to be 2.5, board committees representation annual work plan. For consultation. And so what you will see is essentially the draft is the same that it previously was. And the idea of the motion and the feedback is that the board directed us to look back at how strategic directions the structure is going. And then the board would, decide if it was going to be permanent, what that might look like, if there was changes that need to be made. And so what is here is the way that we want to be able to seek feedback is through this mechanism. And so you'll see that staff have had a review, and we think that it's going quite well. We think that some of the additions to the board agenda to make sure that there's informational items only, but making sure that there's robust agendas in addition to this committee who's operated, I think, very, very well. But again, getting that feedback, this is the mechanism to do that. And I do want to point out right at the get-go is that so there'll be likely some changes that will stem from that. So 1.3, it talks about Leaders for Learning as an example. So we likely have some updates, but rather than make them now, it's when we engage our community that we'll have some of those conversations again if it goes forward with that feedback for the board for consideration. When it comes back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walsh. And I'm seeing Trustee Morvay.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I think it's going great too. I think we actually had one Wednesday night off. I haven't had a Wednesday night off in months.
That was sweet.
Years. It was great because it landed on my son's birthday actually, so it worked out really great. Just some accessibility components, and this is more about process really than the policy itself. Is getting more time to spend with that info. And I know you guys are miracle workers and stuff like that. If we can get like even one extra day to like look at the agenda, that would be fantastic. Sometimes like it comes in like on a Friday, and then like if people are away for the weekend, or some of us work during the week, so the weekend is for our family, then we're starting on Monday, and then we have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday's the meeting. I kind of hope that we can sort of maybe factor that in and maybe get some more, beforehand. Yeah, and then having some of the presentations submitted before the meeting as well. It doesn't happen very often, and I'm not talking about the student presentations really, although I know that we always ask for the PowerPoint presentations, that we're always going to get them. But if we can get any kind of like extra things that happen with staff and stuff, and that can happen before our meeting, that would be fantastic too, so we can sort of digest that information and be able to, formulate our questions in advance. That would be great. But otherwise, I really liked it. Yeah.
Thank you, Chantel. Yeah, the Strategic Directions Committee has really been a great success from my perspective. I know that we've asked, with our new arrangement, we have asked more of staff. We have asked more of their time, and I just wanted to show my appreciation for that time. But I think it's been put to good use, and so I look forward to hearing other people's perspective on this motion before we call the question. Trustee Brzovic, welcome.
Thank you. I would just say that, I would say that I too, I was a little skeptical about this one, and I was wrong. I think this is working really well. I do think that I would like to have some conversations in our next professional learning working group about that committee, and although I really think that committee is working well, there are things that could be done to improve it, but that's a conversation for that group. Overall, though, I think these changes have made us more effective as a board. They've given us more time to think things through, and I think we're doing really good work here. So I think this is a very good change, and I applaud it, and we'll continue to support it.
Thank you, Tanya. And if there are no more comments or questions, I'll turn to Mark Robinson to move the motion.
Thank you, Chair. The Strategic Directions Committee recommends that the Board of Education of School District Number 68 Nanaimo Ladysmith approve in principle, making the Strategic Directions Committee permanent and circulate as a notice of motion for 30 days, Policy 208, Board Committees Representation and Annual Workplace, utilizing the consultation process as per Board Governance, Section 210, Policy Development, and that Policy 208, Section 1.3 is amended to include a member of Student Voice as a member of the Strategic Directions Committee. And I will post that in the chat. And if I get a seconder, I will speak to it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were making an amendment. Is that what just happened?
No,
Okay.
no motion has been made. This is the motion, and I'm just making that motion.
Okay. All right. So it's been seconded by Greg. And so now we're open to Trustee Robinson's motivation.
Thank you, Tom. In reviewing this committee structure, we really have an exciting opportunity, right? Like, we were all inspired not only by what we saw at the conference that we were at recently with the student voice engagement, the student trustees, but tonight we had engagement from the students, and that's got to be inspirational to all of us. So taking the next natural step and bringing students a bit closer to our discussion table, I think might be appropriate if we're going to revamp a bit of the committees, and this is natural step. If we look at section 208, which is titled Board Committee Representation and Annual Work Plan, it reads in the preamble that the Board of Education believes that the best decisions are supported by the inclusion of a diversity of voices. So in the spirit of the preamble, I brought this forward pretty much inspired by tonight in the next step for student voice. If we review subsection 1.3 and we look at the existing policy, it invites teachers through NDTA, our land-based Indigenous partners through Learners for Learning, the support staff through CUPE, administrators through NSAA, and I want to give a shout out to Lisa Frey here, who's running for director. So good luck. You know, we have parents represented through DPAC to participate. So the next natural step would be inviting students through Student Voice. I asked of the students the question if they felt that they would like to be represented. They said yes. If they felt that Student Voice could be that mechanism, we heard again yes. I think it's time. Student Voice has been an amazing success. We've done it. We now have a well-structured body on which to draw from and add Student Voice to our committee. There will be questions on the mechanics, but just as we do with our other stakeholders, we can be confident in leaving that to the Student Voice circle themselves with the leadership of and guidance of the staff that we trust, that are supporting them to determine their own representation. So I speak in favor of the motion. And as the students have inspired all of us, I only ask that we inspire them by supporting this motion and have faith that Student Voice can grow. Faith that the guidance of staff, Student Voice can self-determine the mechanics of their representation to our committee, and faith that our kids will thrive joining us here on the Strategic Directions Committee. And I'm asking for your support and welcome them with open arms. So there we go.
Thank you for that inspired motivation, Mark. You've set the chat abuzz, so we will go to those people. Greg Keller is seconding it, of course, and I have a comment from Tanya, but I think I'm going to take Chantel's point of clarity first, just in case it helps us all. Go ahead, Chantel.
Right. So I just want to ask Mark. This is an amendment to the motion.
It is not an amendment. This
Okay.
is a motion that I made, but I just added a little bit of language to the end of it. We can't really amend any motion that hasn't been made yet.
Oh, so
Right?
you would like to amend the policy?
Well, as per the, well, Chantal, as per the language that was written by staff as the recommendation of our motion, I just added an extra sentence to the end of it.
Okay, so that would be
So it's-
considered an amendment though to the motion itself.
It would be amended. It would be an amendment to the motion if the motion was already made and someone made a motion to the amendment, but the motion was not on the table. And maybe Mark Walsh can clarify that if I'm out
So,
of line. Or
yeah, I'll
incorrect.
just, before we go to Mark, I'll just interject. My understanding is that you really need to put the motion on the floor first before you amend it. But I am going to turn to our legislative professional, Mark Walsh, to take us through the weeds.
Sure. So through your chair, so the motion wasn't moved at the time, so there is nothing to amend, and so the mover can move the motion in a different way. It's not normally the way that we do it, but certainly not. I don't think I wouldn't suggest not appropriate. Now the wording. So to the trustee Morvay's point, section 1 policy. Yeah, I guess we could have, the board could have moved the motion and then amended the policy and then amended the motion to say motion as amended. But I do think that the intent as it's moved is likely there for the board in the circumstance. So I'm not sure I would recommend making a change at this time.
Thank you very much for the clarity. Can I recommend that we take a moment and allow staff to catch up, and then we have the new motion presented to the board so we can discuss it?
Karen, oh,
Yeah, sorry, I'll just come on and read the motion. So it was the motion that was recommended in the original agenda with Mark's wording at the end. So the Strategic Directions Committee recommends that the Board of Education of School District number 68, Nanaimo Ladysmith, approve in principle making the Strategic Directions Committee permanent and circulate as a notice of motion for 30 days. Policy 208, board committees representation and annual work plan utilizing the consultation process as per board governance, section 210 policy development, and that policy 208 section 1.3 is amended to include a member of student voice as a member of the Strategic Directions Committee.
I appreciate the clarity, Karen. And Mark, you want to jump in?
sure, just if it's helpful. So what would happen is if the motion passes as it's drafted, then what we would do is we would go in, change 103 as an amendment, underline it or whatever do to show when it goes out for consultation. And so then it would be the regular request. We're putting this out for 208 out for consultation, and the amendment that's here would show up in that document. So.
Well, thank you very much to all staff for getting us through that. And I now have a comment from Tanya.
Thank you, Tom. I don't want to say that I'm opposed to this because I'm certainly not opposed to the principle of it. I just would gently suggest that while I hear what the mover is saying, that this is the next logical step, I don't actually think it's the next logical step. I think it's the step after the next logical step. I think the next logical step is we had an excellent presentation in Vancouver from Sunshine Coast about their model, and I think their model is the one that I know of that I know would come as close, would pretty much come close to where we already are and like where we want to go. I think our next step is to talk to them, to ask our chair to connect with their chair, ask our staff to connect with their staff because their staff is involved in it, our superintendent to superintendent, and get a bit more in-depth understanding of the steps that we would want to take to have to do this and do it successfully. I just want to make sure that we are set up to to have this be really effective and a good experience for all of the students who participate. And so I think that doing the groundwork and the background work to create the structures first and then bringing it forward once that work is done, which doesn't have to take a ton of time, would be more effective and more respectful of everybody than to go from A to C, which is what it feels like to me this would be doing. So, yeah.
Thank you, Tanya.
But I do think it needs to be the short-term goal, but not yet, but we're not quite there.
Thank you, Tanya. And Greg.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So first I want to just thank my colleague for bringing this motion forward. I seconded the motion out of respect for our colleague to give him the opportunity to have a discussion, but I won't be supporting the motion as it was presented, and the reason is a couple of reasons actually. While I support student voice and want to see representation in a fashion that's appropriate, I believe that the item on the agenda was to deal specifically with the committee structure and not its membership. And secondly, I also believe that the actions taken in response to the presentation and then related motion next on the agenda in relation, pretty well down the agenda anyways, in relation to this item, are not consistent with our board meeting procedures policy. Normally, if we want to take action after a presentation or delegation, we would refer that to a future meeting and not be asked to make a decision immediately on the issue. So it's not necessarily that I don't support the concept, but I can't support it coming forward in this way. So thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And to Mark.
Thank you. I'll just close out my thoughts, Chair. Thank you, colleagues. Several years ago, when I first brought this forward to the board, I was advised by both staff and colleagues on the board that we need something a bit robust that has a proven track record of success before we go to the next step. And the next step was student trustee. This does not go that far as a student trustee. It just invites them to the table as equal partners, equitable partners. That all the other stakeholders have. I think student voice has been successful. I think they've proven it time and time again. We're adding 2 words to item 1.3, policy number 208 1.3, which is student voice as one of the stakeholders next to DPAC. I understand and I appreciate the urge for some to perhaps wanting to slow down a bit and talk it through, but at the end of the day, it's proven throughout the province, it's proven throughout the country. 1/3 of districts in Canada have some sort of student representation, and my heart is saying, if we don't do it now, are we going to wait till next year? Because I've been told 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and now tonight that, you know, we got to slow down, and I appreciate it, but I'm going to stick with my guns here, and I don't want to be telling students that you got to wait longer for that. We can pass the motion and we can discuss it. We can put it to 30-day consultation and see how it goes. And if it doesn't fly, we can strike it down at the board. But I'm looking for my colleagues to support this and welcome the students for equity. That's what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And to Chantel.
So I do appreciate what Mark brought forward, and we did have some really great presentation from, oh my gosh, what area was that from, Tom? Student Voice at the AGM, the BCSTA AGM.
Sea to Sky was there.
Sea to Sky, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. So what I see this as is more inviting them to the table rather than like, you need to come here and you need to give us, you know, the lowdown on everything and stuff like that. I don't feel that would inviting them to this table in a way where they can ask questions as our other stakeholders have done. to be a huge expectation. I could see the expectation being just sort of sitting back and listening for a while, and getting the feel of things. I do wonder, and I would really actually like to hear from the public what they would think about that, of having student voice at the table as well. I think it would be actually pretty neat to hear from the public to see what they have to say. Maybe even some students have some things to say about that as well. I just do wonder about their structure. I know that they talked about their structure before in the past, and how that they bring people onto the student voice committee sort of thing. And I do wonder how they will structure that to pick who it would be to come to these meetings, or if it'd be a shared responsibility, or they would change out every single month. I wonder if they have the time to do that in this time frame. So if we were to agree to this motion at the end of May and it went through, would that now make it mandatory for student voice to come in June? Stuff like that. Those are kind of some of the questions that are rolling around in my head. I wouldn't want to put any undue pressure onto them for the end of the year, and to staff as well. But I don't think this is as I think this is a really great soft way for them to come in to Circle and speak with us as student voice. So thank you, Mark, for putting this forward, and some things to think about here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chantel, and welcome, Tim Harris.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to first of all just say that I'm quiet tonight a little bit because I'm under the weather. I came home early today from work, so I just want you to be aware of that I'm not feeling so. But I do, I agree in principle with the motion. One thing I wonder about is cart before the horse, just around what Tanya's talking about in regards to. For me, I feel like, are we ready policy-wise? Are we ready process-wise to have youth coming in at that level? You know what I mean? So for me, I think there's maybe a little bit more discussion to be had around it. But for me, I'm all over the motion for sure. I just think that I'm just not sure. I don't want to wait a year. I don't want to wait 6 months or even 3 months. I just think that for me, I'd like to figure out what the process is around their voice and how it's used and process wise and all that kind of stuff. It's important to have that. So yeah, I appreciate Mark Robinson for bringing that forward. I do agree with it at some point. I'm just not sure about the timing of it right now in regards to what I just mentioned. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim, and hope it passes quickly. Looking at my speakers order, I am now, I'm reminded that it was Sunshine Coast who taught us about their student voice at the BCSTA. Thank you, Tanya, and welcome Board Chair Naomi Bailey.
Hi, for some reason my picture doesn't show up. I'm using my personal laptop tonight, and I too, Tim, am under the weather, so I've been rather quiet. I think everyone knows that I am a huge supporter of student voice and being a part of the governance model. I think it's really important for a variety of reasons. But I am going to echo sort of what Tim just said and Greg. I am concerned about the process. I think we need to have some more discussions before we pass a motion moving in this direction. I think there was a lot of ideas generated from our AGM. We were pretty excited, which I understand, but I think we need to have a more fulsome discussion about what this could look like and process, policy, all those pieces that I think are really important to make it really work. So I think where I'm sitting right now is that I'm not going to support the motion, the amended motion. So just because I wanted to see us do a little bit more work and investigation before we jump into something. I want students there, of course, for sure, 100%. Thank you.
And thank you, Naomi. And Mark offers that the 30-day consultation process will give us the tempo. I'm going to close the conversation with my own thoughts. I appreciate the activism and advocacy of Mark Robinson and other trustees who have put the spotlight on our lack of student voice in our processes. I think we've come a long way in a couple of years, and I appreciate staff for that support. And I think we will get there, and I know it can be difficult to wait. And I think at this point, I'm actually, we shouldn't do it on the same day as a presentation. So I will be voting against it, but I'll be encouraging Mark Robinson to bring back a motion similarly worded as soon as possible. And thank you for your work, Mark. I see Mr. Walsh popping up, so always good news.
Thank you, Chair. So I don't want to presuppose the outcome. What I would say is the manner in which the motion has been moved, in the event that the board would generally be supportive of going for consultation for part of it, but not all of it, defeating it, if indeed that was what may occur, it would be better to amend the motion to remove a part that the trustees, if they don't want that part, and then to debate the main motion. Because if you defeat the entirety of the motion, if that was to be the circumstance, then Understood. There would be no consultation.
So I will go ahead and move an amendment and to strike the amended offered by my colleague earlier. So can I get a seconder for that amendment, please? And that's seconded by Naomi. And then I'll motivate just to say, as I said before, that I think the time has come. Oh, sorry. Greg would like us to read. So you want to come on and explain what you mean, Greg?
My apologies, Chair. My fingers weren't working. Could we please have the original motion read to us?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. Thank you, staff. Oh, I could do that.
I'll move it if you like. Or actually, sorry. We have a. My apologies. I'm jumping the gun. And I'm not trying to confuse things. We have an amendment we have to deal with first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think at this point I'll just motivate to see if we can get that unamended. So yeah, I honestly agree that this time has come. We've been motivated both by the work of our colleagues in other districts and by the amazing presentation of our students. I agree with Trustee Robinson. They are the one group that we have overlooked. And as I was thinking tonight, they're actually the most diverse group of any of our stakeholders as well. So I look forward to supporting a future motion that will bring about this same effect, but just in something that meets our processes. So I will call the question. Is there anyone opposed to my amendment, which is to remove the previous amendment? Seeing none, that amendment passes, and we're back on the original motion as presented by staff in section 10.3. Would anyone like to move that motion, the original motion? We'll need it moved again. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Thanks for working through this difficult process. And if I may, Chair, can I ask a procedure question to our Secretary Treasurer before I read it?
Always in order.
Through you, Chair, to Mark. I just wanted to ensure that we've procedurally done what is needed before I read the motion in the agenda.
Yes, so through you, Chair. So what happened was the motion that was recommended in the agenda was moved with additional words added to it. So it was moved with the words to begin with. So the original motion was 10.3 plus the additional wording that was presented in the chat. The amendment that just occurred removed the additional wording that said and that policy 2.8 section 1.3 is amended to include a member, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what is now on the floor still and does not need to be reread is the original wording in the agenda under 10.3. So starting with the Strategic Directions Committee recommends that the board approve in principle the Strategic Directions Committee make it permanent, ending with the word policy development.
Okay, thank you very much. So I do not have to reread it. I can go back off the screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I really appreciate that clarity, Mark. So we have a motion on the floor. It has been amended. And now I feel that I could call the question, which I will do now. All those in, anyone opposed to the motion as presented in your original agenda in section 10.3 board committee structure review? Anyone opposed to that motion, please say so now in the chat. Seeing none, I will declare that motion passed. Thank you. And moving back to Mark Walsh for 10.4. And of course, welcome Tanya Sutton.
Thank you, Chair. And so this evening, you'll see the final preliminary proposed annual budget, along with two motions for the board's consideration. One of them is to make the bylaw reading all three in one night. This evening, if that motion is put on the table, it does not need to be unanimous. If it gets to the board level, the board would need to make it unanimous. And then the three readings for the budget itself. I do want to start off again by thanking the strong, the hard work of our finance team, digging into the level of work to create the budget and meet the vision of the board and the superintendent is significant, but obviously also worthwhile in the outcome that I believe that the board is seeing this evening. So there's not a great deal of change from the preliminary budget, but the finalization of some of the special purpose budgets is present in here as well. So I won't go over it too much, but I do want to touch on a couple of areas. First, I want to remind the board that when we build the budget, it's based off of a number of assumptions that we are making. Enrollment obviously being the most significant assumption we're making. So from a revenue perspective, the revenue that we get from the general student FTE is enormously important and the main driver of our revenue. The funds we get from diverse learners to support various programs to support diverse learners is significant. Revenue with respect to our Indigenous students as well, and finally our international student population and the assumptions that we're making there. If we miss on any of them, the ministry is giving us preliminary funding. We're staffing schools, creating the budget with the assumption that we're going to make those numbers. Normally, we are pretty conservative on these. In the last few years, we've been doing our darndest to get closer and closer and closer. So we're not drawing back funds in the preliminary aspect of the budget only to put them back in September. Hopefully less churn in our schools, more predictability, more hours, etc. And I'm really proud actually of this budget on that front. But it does create risk. So we know that if we miss enrollment, so every trustee and every staff member is knocking on doors of children saying, have you enrolled in schools yet? Because our elementary is a bit softer. It's pretty much where it was in previous years because we do have a relatively transient community compared to some communities. So we anticipate some ebb and some flow. Secondaries continue to be strong. And again, we could see those kids flowing from 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10, etc. So we don't quite know what inflation looks like. We've had a couple of nice interventions. So the carbon tax will be actually a net benefit to the removal of the carbon tax will be a net benefit to us, at least at this particular time. And the impact of tariffs, again, being an industry that's 90% people, well, we're not as hit hard maybe, except for when we're talking capital projects. Obviously, a desk is something that's going to get more expensive, materials get more expensive, but we're not looking at the entirety of the operation being struck by the impact of tariffs. bargaining. So it's a risk in the sense that, we anticipate that our employee groups will be getting increases. We don't know this yet, though, because bargaining has not happened. And we also anticipate that the employee groups would get support from the Ministry of Education in the form of funding so the board can fund those increases. It's happened in the past. It's never necessarily guaranteed. So a couple of things to be aware of, and I just again want to remind the board, one thing that our school district has done, and again, it's on the risk registry, of course, is this idea that we can predict that we are going to be in a bit of a surplus position at the end of the year. And what that means is most districts, if not all districts, put a local capital transfer at this time of year in the preliminary budget. So we know we need computers, we know we need technology, we know we need vehicles or whatever it is. And so like last year and the year before, rather than take that money out of the operating budget in the preliminary basis, so essentially saying, well, we are going to have 8 less teachers for the $1 million that costs, we're going to not do our local capital transfer and rely on the surplus in the event that there is one to supply that in September. So if you see a surplus in September, know that that needs to be the predominant area that those funds have to go. But that strategy is intended to make sure that we're able to put as many resources at our schools preliminarily as possible. And see, we're opening school, creating some more space. That's exciting news. So I'm not going to go much through the budget. I think we've talked about a number of these areas through our earlier sessions. A couple of points to make on page 63 of the agenda, 14 of the budget document. You can see the trend line with enrollment. So a big jump next year and then a slowing and then a slowing. And we can see that in our elementary. And so I know it's where we are a fortuitous district this year. I'm very happy to be in the position we're in compared to some of our colleagues, but in a couple of years, barring no changes, we could be looking at some challenges due to enrollment kind of stabilization, not decline. So I'm going to ask Ms. Sutton if she wants to jump on and highlight anything that really needs to be touched on that maybe is different than the previous 2 presentations we did, but I would just love to leave it for trustees to ask some questions and see if we can't get some more information and dig in that way. But before I do, Tanya, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Walsh. Through the chair, I would just remind board that when we presented last time, we did make note that we were still working through the Indigenous Ed target and that we would be showing, possibly showing some changes, which we have done, but just wanting to ensure trustees that the changes that have been made with regards to some of the pullback of FTE is actually not bodies. It's not people in positions that are being cut. It's identifying the amount of staff that we have in place to support our Indigenous students and identifying that historic requests for staffing may have been in excess of our ability to staff. And so there had been extra hours in budget that wasn't able to be filled or wasn't able to directly be shared amongst employees to create fulsome assignments. So it becomes just budget dollars that are not utilized correctly. So we did some significant work with the lead of the Indigenous department and our HR department and just a collaborative effort to make sure that all of the resources that we have for our Indigenous students are being directed to our Indigenous students with the supports that we have available to the system. So I feel like that's pretty much the only significant change since we came the last time. And like Secretary Walsh said, happy to answer any questions.
And Chair, one last thing that I will add to is just the reminder, and I think everyone's aware, if we see more students enrolling, we are not stuck by this. It's a preliminary budget. We add and subtract, but we typically add throughout the year as increasing if resources become available. Of course, if we miss, then there's a different conversation to be had. But so, for instance, School X sees 30 extra kids that we weren't anticipating, they can fit, we'll be staffing that, despite the fact that the preliminary budget doesn't necessarily show that particular staffing. So that flexibility is inherent. And then what happens is next January, we come back to the board and we say, here's all the changes that occurred from spring, because this is, you know, not a shot in the dark, of course, but certainly things change relatively significantly from this preliminary budget going forward.
Well, I thank you both for the presentation and your explanation. Thank you for bringing to our attention some of the maneuvers you've made in order to keep our stability, I guess I'd say, especially when it comes to human resources. And also for outlining what we'll be looking for in September to make sure that it all works out. I do say that as I read the articles that are being written about the pressures on our neighbors in Oceanside, I really am appreciative of the work done by staff. We are really in a very fortuitous position compared to a lot of districts, and that's in no short order due to the diligent work of our senior administration, Mark, Tanya, and your team. So thank you very much. I would open up to anybody to questions before we move the motion. Would anyone like to, Leanne would like to move the motion. Go ahead, Leanne.
Thanks, Tom. The Strategic Directions Committee recommends that the Board of Education of School District Number 68, Nanaimo Ladysmith, give School District Number 68, Nanaimo Ladysmith, 2025-2026 budget bylaw all 3 readings at 1 meeting on the 28th of May, 2025.
And I'll look for a seconder. I'm happy to second it. Oh, there's somebody. Leanna got in there. Leanna is seconding that. And Leanne, would you like to motivate?
Yes, please. Thank you. I think that we can all agree that our staff listened to the concerns that we had going into the budget process about the need for additional supports in schools, and they've made corrections in this budget to reflect that, to support our staff and our students. I appreciate being slightly cautious given the current climate, and I'm hoping that our enrollment numbers bump up and we will be able to maintain this and also put additional supports in place moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Would anyone else like to speak on the motion before I call the question? I'm seeing none, so if anyone is opposed to the motion as read by Leanne, would you please enter it into the chat now? Again, seeing none, I think the motion passes, and so we'll move on to motion 2. Would anyone like to move the second motion for us? Don't be shy. Okay, I'll do it. The Strategic Directions Committee recommends that the Board of Education of School District Number 68, Nanaimo Ladysmith, adopt the annual budget of the Board of the fiscal year 2025-2026 at the Board of Education meeting on May 28th, 2025. And that's seconded by Tanya. Thank you. I again would just echo all the support for the work done by our staff. This is one of the most powerful moments where we shape we shape what we provide to our students, and we have some of the best people doing great work for us, and you've put us in a wonderful position, and very supportive of your work. So, and yeah. If there are no other questions on that, I think I'm ready to call the question. Would anyone like to comment on that? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Anyone opposed to motion 2 in section 10.4, please enter it in the chat now. I see no bouncing balls, so I can declare that a passed motion. Thank you very much, everybody, for your work. Moving through to 11, we have new business. I'm told there is none. For information, there is also none. I like asking Karen if there's any questions because I always ask Karen questions. So Karen, do we have any questions?
No questions
Nothing.
tonight.
All right. Then, wonderful people, I will entertain a motion to adjourn, and I will get down to the Vault Cafe to see my kid perform, which I so appreciate you getting us out of here on time. Sorry, there was a request for a motion in there. Would anyone like to? There we go. Moved by Tanya, seconded by Tim. Thank you very much, everybody. And have a great rest of your evening. And thank you for your ongoing work to support student success.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.